Good afternoon, guys. Appreciate you guys being here, and again, full speed ahead on preparation for Syracuse and our opportunity this weekend. Coming off, a solid performance against Wake Forest, where we felt that we took some really good steps from a defensive standpoint, running the football amongst other things, and putting together a really strong second half, primarily in the fourth quarter. And we're on it. We're on to the next one right now. Looking forward to playing a really good football team that's one of the top offenses in the country. I don't think their defense gets enough credit. They're top three in our conference from a pass defense standpoint. I don't think their running back gets enough credit, and I think their coach has done a really good job. Coach Brown has put together a really good staff and put together some really good players and developing that roster. So, questions, please.
You alluded to it, but they are much more than just a quarterback. People see the quarterback numbers, and I think they get very confused. Just what jumps out off. You've got a ton of depth at receiver. Tight end's obviously very good. Running back, like you said, is elite.
Running back's a really good player. I mean, he's a lot like what we faced this last week. He's bigger, he's strong. Just a one cut, make you miss and go, guys. He does not go down easily. He's complemented by a very big offensive line. Really physical. I know that we were just studying their interior right before coming in. They get some good knockbacks, some good push at the line of scrimmage. And they get the ball out in space as well. They use him in the screen game really well. And obviously they use number 19. We know him, right? Local guy that's got a great history of playing high school football down here, family history as well. But they use Gadsden in so many different ways, 11 personnel and 12 personnel. But he's got great players beside him. 2's a great player. 82's a great player. 7, 5. I could go on and on and on. So all in all, their success isn't by accident. They're very efficient. They are a team that plays really hard. And in the Dome, I believe they're 5-1. So they defend home territory, home turf really well. So really good football team.
And because you're playing in the Dome, do you utilize the IPF more this week?
We split time inside and outside, just like being on the grass. I mean, there's nothing like playing and practicing on the grass. It's just always it's better on the body, but we'll use it. And certainly it'll be allowed, and expecting just a great college football atmosphere. So all the amenities that we use to prepare for those away trips, for those road games that have that type of an environment, we'll use it in the IPF. But we also have ways to do that outside.
Is there any of the games you guys have played this year that you can sort of look back to in terms of trying to prep for the offense you're about to face this weekend?
Well, there's always some type of carryover. They're uniquely, they're just different. They're different because of the personnel they have and the way they use them. I mean, they lead the country in contested catches. In fact, 3 of their 4 wide receivers are the top 3 contested catch receivers in the country. So it's not just a play design, it's really good players going up and high pointing the ball and making tough catches with just great body control. But they'll get in loaded sets as well. They can get big in a hurry and get, 12 personnel in there and a third tight end as well, and get downhill in the running game behind some of their big offensive linemen. So, and they play complementary football really well. They've shown the ability to really flip the field with their punter, but also, change the complexion of the game with their return game. They've got some really good returners. They use their better athletes on all the return and all the specialty units as well. So, just again, really good football team.
Murray did a good job this year of seeing what's in front of you and not thinking big picture. Mm-hmm. When the big picture is so close, don't know what's on the line of the opportunity to go to the AC title game. Does it change this week? Do you have to mention that? Is that on the mindset? Do you want guys to embrace the fact that a win puts you there?
Well, I think just the college football landscape has helped us with that, because every week you watch somebody, right, focusing on the big picture and stumbling. I mean, it's hard to. When's the last time you've seen so many top 25 teams just week by week by week, succumb to whatever be media pressure, right, program expectations or whatnot. So it's almost like our process has been really good for us, so our guys believe it. They regurgitate it. They flat out speak it and live it before we even get to them. And I think probably the best way to put it is, like our team, like in our team meeting, the clear understanding is this is not This is Miami against Syracuse. This is not Cam Ward against Kyle McCord. This is not Gadsden's records versus Restrepo's records. This is not Akeem Mesidor and Bain's sack record against Fidel Diggs, you know. This is Miami against Syracuse in the most important game of the year, you know. So the 1-0 process and mentality continues.
You didn't have to, I guess, to be clear, you don't have to mention that. It's not something that's discussed like, hey, what's on the line? Is that something you don't address with the players? Or,
I'm not sure.
meaning, you know, this is a game where you win, you're in the AC Championship game. It's an opportunity that you guys have worked for all year long.
I would say that just the posturing of our words are very different, you know, just we don't talk much in ifs, you know what I mean? We address things more in absolutes, like this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to approach it. Like hypotheticals and maybes and probablys are just not part of the dialect, you know, when we're approaching, you know, a contest.
Mario, recruiting calendar has kind of moved up this year with Early Signing Day being Bill next week, which comes obviously right at the end of the regular season, and ideally you guys will be playing for or preparing for another game next week. How do you guys approach the early signing period? How do you balance game prep and recruiting?
Well, and I'll respectfully answer the question. Every ounce of focus is on playing Syracuse. You know, the other balance stuff, you know how we go. We don't stop, but there's no talk about really anything else right now in the building while we do attend to all the responsibilities of recruiting.
And then
I hope that answers it, you know.
Yeah.
I just, you know.
And then with Fran Brown, I mean, you've been in a situation where you're taking over a program after some iffy season. He's obviously had a lot of success at Syracuse doing that this year. Just how difficult is it to come and do a new program, take it over, and have that kind of success in your world?
Yeah, well, I mean, every program has a different starting point. It's all relative to the starting point. You know, sometimes guys walk into turnkey operations, and sometimes it's, man, you know, you have to uproot and destroy the foundation and lay a new one. So it's all different. In their case, I'm not sure from a background standpoint. All I know is that Coach Brown and his coaches have done a great job supplementing that roster with really, really high-level talent. And they brought them together and so they're doing schematically what really fits them. And they've excelled, you know, and they've excelled. And certainly if you look at the scores of their games, they were in a position to win every single game that they played this year.
With respect to, it is just about Syracuse this week. Don't yell at me, I'm going to take a second swing because I wanted to ask you about recruiting as well, just broadly. The earlier signing date,
Right.
what does that do to assist teams instead of everything being compressed toward the middle and end of December? Is that a game changer, good or bad, or is it just cosmetic, just that's something they did just to make it look better?
I mean, there's always last-second flips, you know, that are tied into every signing day. I don't know if they're really last second. Does that make sense? You know, it's like almost it's like cramming for a test. If you haven't been doing what you're supposed to do all along, it's probably not going to look exactly right. You might get lucky. You might, you know, hit a home run on it. But, I mean, recruiting is a marathon. It is a relentless, every single day, every second that you're not game planning and working with your players and meeting with your players, you have to spend on that. You have to, you know, I mentioned earlier today, I had a chance on the radio to mention that, I mean, if you can't identify and recruit, your value to a college football program is very little. It just is. And I'm talking about everybody in the building. I mean, from your people in development, your people in recruiting, your people in academics. I mean, it's always going to be about the people, always. And the identification process is even more important than the recruiting process, right? Because you could recruit your butt off. If you recruit your butt off and bring in all the wrong ones, you're going to be in worse shape than ever. So, in other words, it never stops.
You were part of the classic game up there in '92.
Was.
What do you recall? I mean, 16-10, people look at the score, they're like, nothing really happened. That was a million plays in that game. What do you remember?
Loud. I remember getting to the team hotel, and there was a contingent of fans that just, you know, they made it uncomfortable for us upon arrival. And I remember they had really good players. They had a really good defensive end. I remember not being able to hear and trying to look at the ball and trying to get off at the same time and block that absolute monster of a defensive end they had. And I remember, I believe it was Gedney getting tackled at the 3-yard line and time expiring. That's what I remember. Great game. great football team, physical, yep, got all those crazy pictures, man.
Mario, like Deani Hill didn't play last game. Is everything okay with him?
He's good. He's good. Rotation wise, there's really, I don't think there's anything to it. Just it ended up being like it ended up being. He's a really good player. He's going to play for us. You'll see him this week.
I know you addressed this on Joe's show this morning too, but do you have any more clarity on whether some guys will be back?
Well, we have complete clarity on Ryan Rodriguez. He's there, like he's playing. And then we were right there with both Damari and Elijah, and I think we'll have more clarity by tomorrow.
How do you think Mario Cam has handled the looks week to week? He's such a focus for the opposing team on what he does. How do you think he's handled the changes, different looks, different things defense is giving him, not giving him?
That's a good question. See, I think that, even though it's not flashy and fun to look at or exciting, this past week he handled those looks about as well as you could handle them. When people start playing, I like to refer to it as umbrella coverage, right? They're backing up and you've got a decision to make. You have leverage for a throw, but the guy's kind of in no man's land, like in purgatory, halfway in, halfway out, and he could play the run, and they might have a jam stunt tied to it, so you could whiff on the run if you hand it off, and if you throw it, you may have missed on a big run. So I think he did a great job in that cat and mouse game. I also think he did a great job checking us and putting us in protections that allowed him to be protected and get the ball off. The one sack was an RPO where an alignment really, it made it difficult. That's like it's hard to even get to that kind of rep in practice. The end was really wide. It was the backside of a gap scheme. There's no way the tackle could know he's protecting that. There's no way for Cam to really make an adjustment when he saw what he had to the boundary, which I'm sure you guys saw the route concept over there. So I guess to answer your question, he's really, really done a great job, and he is all about getting pushed and doing better.
What was the philosophy? Was it just time and score on the squib? Was it something you just wanted to see in case you need it later? What?
Well, we certainly didn't have success on one of our earlier kickoffs, and weren't quite sure that we were ready to kick it deep again, and that we were airtight in how we were going to do that. And then when you look at it, and we looked at it on the iPad, and we felt like we can get there, and we did on the next kickoff. We certainly, and it was the exact same scheme, it was the exact same, just about ball placement, with more physicality and more discipline by the safeties. We really crowded, we almost overlapped the front line when we covered it. And if you do that with your safeties, they have to be on point, they have to be right, they have to be perfect. If not, there's no, just the distribution of your tacklers and the leverages are off. All of a sudden there's a giant hole, and we didn't leverage the ball. In fact, we let it spit, and the contained guy wasn't physical enough and didn't set the edge well enough, and now all of a sudden, they went. So, but we've worked on it before. We've done it before. Not a ton. We have a couple different ways to get to it. We feel better about it now.
Similar to the question about Deani, I think I saw Tyler Barron had only 3 snaps. Is he banged up, or is the rotation with him?
No, not banged up. That's just the way the coaches chose to do the rotation.
Gotcha. And then you've talked about him on and off throughout the year, but Dylan Day hasn't played a ton on defense, but he's made some big plays on special teams.
Yeah.
Forces the fumble on the kickoff return.
Right.
How has he progressed during the season, and how does that excelling on special teams help him for the future?
He's going to be a great player. He's really close to being in that rotation. He is right there. And we have confidence to play him now in the rotation, should his number be called. His play on special teams has been nothing short of spectacular. He's been a game changer, and I think we've all, over the years at Miami, we've all seen how great special teams players end up becoming great every down players, and he's on track to do that.
What's it mean to you that you do have guys like Dylan who, not to compare years 1 and 2 to this, but, and I know you're going to say it's not fully built, but if a kid could play, he played. You didn't have the ability to hold. You didn't have this sort of depth where kids who could play weren't playing. You had to play them all. What's that say about where you are in the process of building that you do have that sort of depth now?
Progress. Progress. I would say it's working its way there. We'd like to develop more depth in the secondary, at all spots, excuse me. But I do see a really bright future our young guys play a lot. We play them in all different kinds of ways. You guys saw Jordan Lyle really have a day, and Lofton's had his moments. I think by the end of this year, we take care of business. I mean, we should have more freshman All-Americans in the last 2 years than just about anybody. And that would be a testament to recruiting the right guys, developing them the right way, and then granting them the opportunities that they earn. So, but I think Dylan Day is a great example of that, and I do think that our depth is getting better.
So overall, how would you assess the defense's performance allowed, just 7 points, after kind of struggling the weeks prior?
Yeah, not many. I don't think many defenses allowed 7 points this past weekend, and the first drive was certainly something that was not positive. We blew the call it the sore route, right, where they got to pass that off on the back and the safety takes the post, and the corner fluffs off, right. So after that, the pick six turned things around. I mean, we went over it this morning as a team because it's important for the offense to know too. The offense was kind of sputtering a little bit, and all of a sudden for 9 successive drives, I believe 4 to 5 of them were 3 and outs, 2 of them were 4 and outs, and another one what I believe was a turnover or whatnot. Then the last drive ended the game. But 9 straight possessions without a score. 3 of those were on the plus side, right? One at our 30-yard line after the fumble, 2 at the 40-something. That's really, really hard to do. And I believe Wake Forest was averaging well over 20 points a game, 24 to 28 points a game. So tremendous turnaround in communication, alignment, and assignment. We leveraged the ball well, we communicated well, and lined up. And we played fast and we played free. And certainly a step towards what we want to be as a defense.
When you have a kid like Jordan Lyle and the talent is oozing out of his ears, what is your message to them about patience and waiting their turn when they're 19 and 20?
Well, we tell them, instead of waiting your turn, make your turn. Take all that talent and approach it like a professional. And I think Jordan has, and OJ has as well. There's a lot of guys that are young that probably have equal talent or close to it. The approach of those two, Elijah Lofton, a guy like Francis Mainoa, last year, Ruben Bain, they kind of take an extra step. They push it to another level as it relates to just being mature, So instead of telling them to be patient, we tell them make a way, make it difficult on us, Play so well, practice so well that you have to be played. And this last week and a half, that's what Jordan Lyle did. 2 weeks before that, 3 weeks before that, AJ did that as well. So guys that are showing it, they're getting their opportunities.
All right, follow up on the defense question. Just this week, it's a little different of a challenge. Obviously, you have a quarterback who I don't know if there's anyone in the country who throws him more than he does this season. As a defense, how do you approach that, knowing that you're going to be challenged early often, and that's kind of their game style and plan?
Sure. Well, the first thing is, you'd hate to talk about game plan, publicly as you prepare for them, but you really study the people that have had success against them, right? When you have accurate passers that have a good offensive line and they get the ball out and have a good running back, you can't be overly static, right? You have to be able to do things that make them get off of their schedule, right? Get off of their blueprint a little bit and get them out of sync. So when you study him as a passer, you realize that this guy Kyle McCord is really, really good at getting to his second and third read in the progression. You start to realize that he keeps plays alive and extends plays by just having great pocket presence and moving around. So you study all the things he does well and just try to find the things that, have given him some problems, and you put it together. But, I don't know how to answer that question without just diving into, what we're going to do schematically. But we just recognize the fact he's a really good player.
I would imagine, I'm sorry. I would imagine that because he's a first-year guy, do you have much of a relationship with Fran? Do you know him other than?
No, we had a chance to meet at the media conferences or whatnot. We don't really get much social time in life, period. So I don't know how social we are as human beings with all the crazy responsibilities we have, but he certainly has had a really good track record of developing his position groups, and now as a head coach, really already is up to 8 wins in his first year.
Seems like this might just be confirmation bias on my part that officials are calling OPI on those rub routes more frequently. I know you guys have been with them a couple times. I've seen it a bunch in other games. I guess, is it on, the receiver to not make sure they're not looking like they're running a pick, or is it, maybe the rule needs to be changed a little bit or applied a little differently? So what do you think about it?
you just can't run into the guy. You know, you got to avoid it. You got to avoid it. It's really got to be part of the route to have contact and not be OPI. It's just too easy to execute a pick play. It is. So do you get frustrated with it? Of course. You'd love for that to be a touchdown and not what it is, but it's going to be called. It's being called most of the time. And so I think that's going to always be a difficult one. I think for the most part, the conference has allowed people to play. There's been some physical play and yanking and tugging on both sides, and sometimes you're going to end up on the great side and sometimes on the not so great side of that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at that, you know.
I know the pre-snap stuff got to you Saturday.
It did.
But where are you overall with the discipline right now? Are you pretty good with the way the first 11 games?
We really practice the right things. We work at it. The players themselves preach it. They do it. Those things were absolute killers on Saturday. They were. You know, we had 2 of those, right? We had something we hadn't had all year, an alignment mistake, right? After running counter for, I believe, 9 yards, we're going to have first and or second and 1 down deep, and all of a sudden we're back and we end up throwing a pick on that particular drive. So the 2 illegal procedures, the illegal procedure and the holding knocked us back 15 yards before half, which we end up kicking a field goal from the 7-yard line, right? So there's some more real estate that we could have had. That discipline part that'll be the bridge between our ending up in field goals in the red zone and making those things touchdowns. And that was a big point of emphasis this morning in our meeting. So gotta have it, man. Gotta have it.
Eat on Thanksgiving.
Favorite thing to eat? I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Gosh. I'll go with picadillo. There we go. Yeah, I know, we have practice and all that stuff, and, so it'll be tough, but we'll make sure that the guys do have a good meal on Wednesday night and a little bit on Thursday, and we'll hop on a plane and get out there on Friday, and get a chance to walk through the dome, and so they could see the new, different kind of environment, and go play ball.
You guys are going to see snow?
Are they going to see snow?
It sounds like from the bus to the building. It sounds like
Yeah, and believe it or not, the biggest responsibility falls on the director of operations, right? Because if there's any potential weather issue, he's got to 360 to 180 this thing and say, hey, we're leaving on Thursday night to avoid any weather issues.
But a couple inches, they're saying.
Yeah, for us, there's a million things going on and all kinds of noise, and brother, we're focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's the way it needs to be, and that's the way we're gonna be. So a little bit boring, and I get it, but that's the way we're gonna be, And I appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you have your favorite foods. And
That was a good answer.
Shannon, you guys have been so consistent offensively the whole year. When you go through a lull like you went through the other day in the middle of the game, is it kind of like a shock to you?
No, because it might be consistent, seem consistent. Every game has those. They do. I mean, the beauty of playing an early game sometimes is you get to watch football, which a lot of times we don't get to watch football. And so when you have a game like that, you watch football and you see two things are evident. One is no game goes perfect. There's going to be ebb and flows of game, highs, lows, all the rest. And the other one is like games late in the year are hard to win. If you watch games at this time of year, typically every game at halftime is tight. Almost every game is tight at halftime. Now, the team, at the end of the game, it is what it is. But typically every game this time of year at halftime is really tight. And that's what you see. And then the second half, it's either stays tight and you got to squeak out a win or you can pull away a little bit. But halftime of every game that I watched this weekend, I was like, that gum, it's a 1-point game, And so it's just the way it is. You can't score 40 points in a play. It takes time. And it takes a team effort, I mean, the defense did an unbelievable job Saturday, because when we did screw up, right, and gave them a short field, defense stopped them. And then when defense got a turnover or we got a short field, we scored. And that's how they kind of got out of the rut, you know what I mean? So every game has those. It's just it might not be as long, but they do,
It is I should know this and I don't, sorry. I assume you have some dome experience. I don't know about the Carrier Dome, but it's loud. I can say that as an upstate New Yorker. It's a loud dome. What the challenge of communication? Obviously now there's new technology, but that doesn't always I know you guys concentrate on working on the hand signals and all that every week. Just what is the challenge of going into a place that's going to be?
It's just, the challenge isn't as much a challenge as just we have things in place for games that we deem to be loud, and we'll just change the cadence up, We have multiple cadences we can go on. Obviously, the majority of it is clap. But if when we played Florida game 1, we went silent. We thought that was going to be a loud environment. It ended up not being too loud, but it was we could have, and we'll switch at times from, if we get into a game and it's not what we thought it would be, we can switch from one to another. We can switch. Cam has switched in between drives before, so it's whatever cadence we deem appropriate for that game. And then once we get into that game, it usually changes, but sometimes it doesn't.
You ever think of it in those terms, that you kind of control the volume of what that building's going to be like?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If you want fans to be quiet, then execute. It's simple. But I've been there twice. I think it was twice. And so it is loud, and it is a little bit different, the ceiling and everything. And so, but it's a good environment. They play well at home.
People talk about their offense a ton and for good reason. Defense is pretty good as well. They get to the quarterback. They have some athletes. They're pretty good on the perimeter. Just what jumps off the sheet?
Their D line is long and active. They get after it. Number 10. We played him last year, right? And so he can really get after the quarterback. The will linebacker, number 8, is as good as a linebacker as we faced this year. In my opinion, he's really, really instinctive. He's always around the ball. He plays hard. That's the one thing you see when you watch tape with those guys is they're really emotional. They play hard, and so we got to match that, obviously.
Shannon, Jordan Lyle didn't get a ton of snaps during conference play for most of the games up until this past weekend, where he got the most in conference play that he had. Did he show anything different in practice that earned those snaps this week?
Yeah, I think he had a really good week of practice. And I think that that room's a talented room, and so we've talked about that all year of splitting up reps and all the rest. And we just thought it was appropriate to get him some carries. And the thing about it is you go into games and you have a certain plan of reps. You really, you're going to try to do certain things, and sometimes the game just doesn't flow in a way that it works out. It's just, I'm just being honest. And so it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. And so it's not that my point with that is, it's not that the weeks before he had bad weeks of practice. He's a pretty consistent player, right? And so it was just good to get him in there because he's very talented, and good to see him do a lot of good things.
When it When a player of Cam Ward caliber pitches a ball and it ends in an interception, from a scale of 1 to 10, what is your frustration and what is your message to him when he comes to the sideline?
My frustration is low. I mean, I'm not a guy that overreacts to things like that. I mean, I understand that bad things are going to happen in games. With the technology today, I like to watch it, to see. And because ultimately your initial reaction to things isn't as realistic as you think it is, right? And so a lot of times I try to just keep my comments to myself until I actually see it. The first thing I do is ask him. When he's walking off the field, I just ask him. I was like, "What happened there?" And typically, when he says what he says is more accurate than the way I feel. And so what he said was just, he said, I saw Arroyo in my sight and he was moving, and when I tossed it, right after I tossed it, he stopped, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, you watch the tape and he's moving. It's obviously a screen to him, but the guy twisted and kind of got in the window. So Cam moved to the left, and when he moved to the left, he had an opening, he tossed it, and Elijah saw a guy and stopped, and the ball went to the defender. And so, I mean, that's honestly one of those plays that are just like, hey man, bad things happen. I mean, sometimes you just can't control it. And so you just move on, really. I mean, it wasn't really as an egregious play as I thought, like when I saw it. And then when I watched it and we all communicated, it was just like, he was just trying to flip it to him, and he was open and he was moving and he stopped. And then the ball went to them. It's unfortunate, you hate it, but in my opinion, it's more about how you respond to things like that than the actual crisis, right? And so I try to stay even keel and just take the information and deliver it, and have a simple message, and really, what are we going to do next type deal.
You talked last week about the idea of maybe pressing too much against Georgia Tech. How do you feel like it went against?
I went much better. So the message through the week was, we're going to have to be patient. We got to take what they give. I mean, defenses right now aren't playing super aggressive against us in the back end, right? And so we don't have a lot of just shots down the field. Like, we actually hit Jacoby on a post. We had him on a vertical. We barely missed, and we had Elijah down the middle. But for the most part, like, they're going to play over the top, right? And so, the messaging was just staying patient, taking what they give, and we did for the most part. I thought it was very methodical. It wasn't a flashy game by any stretch, but I kind of knew that going into it because of the way they played defense, and the structure of their defense, and they're very disciplined in the way that they play, right? And so I knew we were going to have to take underneath stuff and run the ball effectively and throw off of runs, and that's what we did. And Cam's, pocket awareness and like feet in the pocket were as good as they were all year. I mean, there were multiple times that he got to the very last read to the running back from left all the way to right. Protection was awesome. That's a big part of that, right? And so I thought his awareness in the pocket was really, really good. And there was a handful of plays in the game that didn't go our way, but that's probably always going to be the case, right? I mean, you're not going to execute 100% of them all perfect. And so, but for the most part, we did play within the plan. And I thought the first drive was awesome. That was really, the first drive was kind of what we laid out, It was a 6.5-minute drive, and we just kind of marched it down the field and scored. And then we were really in the lull. It was working the same way, and just something would happen. Like we lined up wrong in a formation that took out a 10-yard gain and put us behind the change. And then we threw the pick slightly after that. The other one, we're moving, and Strep fumbles. Well, Strep don't really ever fumble, so our ball security needs to be better. And so it was just like a little thing here and there. I mean, it's 1 yard, it's 2nd and 1, and we run a tempo run play, and we're not all set. So Cam's got to make sure everybody's set. So it takes us back to 3rd and 6. They go cover 2. We got Elijah down the middle, and the throw's a little off, and we don't hit it for a touchdown. It was just like little things that were just kind of bogging us down a little bit.
They're going to play different every day. Do you feel like it was important for the offense to see, hey, we can still score 40 points if we when we have to take
Yeah.
what the defense gives us?
I think absolutely. You know, I mean, it's a long game, you know, and I think that, you know, the way games go, like I mentioned earlier, games are typically really tight at halftime. Even in, you know, look at the Duke game, you know, we scored 50 that game. We were down 17 at halftime, I think. You know what I mean? There's a reason why you play the full 4 quarters, right? And so, but it is, you know, the messaging, and what I said earlier was the messaging to Cam is like, there is no 40-point plays. You know, you gotta get to 40. It's a process, you know, and it's not always a quick process. Sometimes it's more of a marathon than a sprint, and sometimes it is a sprint. But like games lay out different, and the journey of navigating the game is honestly part of the fun, you know.
I know the goal is want to know every week, and that's all that matters. Completely understand that. Your side of the ball heard quite a bit of booing last year. There was noise.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys are ranked number 1 in like 83 different offensive categories nationally, is that? I know it doesn't matter, but it does. Is that any sort of badge of honor for this team? That
I don't think so. I mean, I don't pay much attention to the noise. I know people say that, and some mean it and some don't mean it. I honestly don't pay attention to the noise because I deal in reality. And so the reality is this. When I took over this offense, they were 100, right? So last year we were around 25 or 26 at the end of the year. To me, that's a huge jump. That was a lot of positive things, right? Now, did they have the right to boo at times? Absolutely. I mean, my wife was probably booing at times, you know? And so, but that's fine. They have every right to do that. And if you buy a ticket and you're a fan, then you have every right to boo. You know, I don't feel good about certain things either, you know? But I do know that there's a process to getting good at something. It doesn't happen overnight. So I was very happy with the jump we made last year. And maybe a lot of people weren't, and that's fine. Like, everybody can have their opinions of what happened. But I was very excited that we took a leap. I just want to keep going forward, right?
what's more difficult, going from 100 to 25 or 25 to 1?
I don't know. That's a good question. Probably the first one, to be honest with you. Because when you have guys that have banked reps at things and they kind of know how you approach weeks and years and stuff, it gets, not about saying easier, but when people have more reps at something, they get better at it. And you coach people over time and they understand the way the offense needs to lay out. And so I do think the initial year is the hardest because you're trying to get coaches to think a certain way too. So you're trying to get everybody kind of organized and on the same page mentally, schematically, and everything. And that just takes a lot of time and energy. And so
you have a running back room with four guys really playing at an incredibly high level, probably all capable of being, say, a number one running back anywhere. How has that been holding together? No one's going to have a 1,000-yard season, most likely. Then you have a freshman come in the other day looking as good as anybody has in a Miami uniform in a long time. Like, how's that all holding together for you guys as a coaching staff?
I mean, good right now. I mean, I think when you're winning, things hold together pretty tightly, right? And so, but I do give those guys and the people that coach them a lot of credit because, they do seem genuinely happy for the guy that makes the play. They really do. Now, at the end of the day and at the end of the game, do people go back in their room and wish they had more or whatever? I'm sure they do, right? I'm sure they do. I mean, that's the natural response. But overall, you can see them like doing little things for each other that is pretty unique. And I think those guys are genuinely bonded together in a way that, and we might not have a 1,000-yard rusher, but we're probably going to have, over 2,000. So I mean, it's like the collective group is doing really well.
Has the offense exceeded your expectations? I spoke with Xavier Struppel in July, and he said, we're going to have the best offense in the country in July. Have they exceeded your expectations? I
don't know about exceeded. I mean, I knew we had this potential. You never know how things are going to unfold, obviously. But I knew we had the potential to be good on offense because we're solid. We're solid in every position group, right? I mean, our O-line's really solid. Our tight end room's solid. I mean, we're solid in every group. So, on paper, you feel good about it. Now you don't always know how it's going to go, because there's so many different variables that factor into success that, sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes you got injuries and all the rest that can happen. And so, but I did feel good about what I saw on paper.
It seems like, speaking of talented rooms, we haven't seen much of the younger receivers here because that top four has been so good. How have they progressed throughout the season?
Man, we got some talented guys in that group, and and those guys are going to have their time at some point. I don't know when that point will be. Heck, it might be Saturday, But I'm excited about the young guys. I really am. It's just we've been in a lot of tight games, and the thing about this game is when the game's on the line, you want experienced guys out there that have made a lot of football plays, and so it's not a knock on any of those guys. It's just the natural progression of things within a team is hey man, I compete every day, and I compete in a way that when I get my opportunity, I take full advantage of it. And those guys are going to get that opportunity, and they're all going to be super successful here. And it's just right now, it's these guys' time, right? And they're taking advantage of it, and we're trying to squeeze the juice out of them as much as possible.
Anything else? Awesome. Thanks.
Appreciate it, guys.
Two yards of play in the last 9 possessions. You got it.
You watch the film of this group coming up?
That'll do it. Obviously, there's a quarterback. We all know that, but that's far from the full story. What do you see as the biggest challenge with that group?
He knows where to go with the ball. Pre-snap, he's really good. He watches a lot of film, you could tell that. He anticipates things. He's got wide receivers that catch the balls when they're contested. The tight end's elite. You know, he's a lot like our guy, really. You really got to treat him as a wide receiver. They got big guys, so they're good at what they do. They really are. They play fast in that indoor facility they have, so it's gonna be a tough challenge. But we got to do a good job on the back end. We got to get a good pass rush.
I know there's a 24-hour rule that applies, or around here it's more like a 24-minute rule, it seems like sometimes, but just how much did your group need just a really positive fourth quarter?
I think they needed a spark. You know, they needed confidence. And the first series had its moments, of course. We gave up the score, really disappointed. Some things we had worked on that we didn't get accomplished. And in the second series it was driving down, and then Mish made a huge play, pick six, and then from that point on, we changed. You know, it's like we were the defense from early in the season. And it doesn't matter who you're playing. I always look at us and how we're playing. And you could see the spark and you could see the confidence. And each series after that, it kept building because we got put in some pretty, you know, some spots that were tough, you know, and we didn't blink, which was awesome. So credit to our guys being mentally tough. I was proud of them.
How do you keep that spark ignited going through this week and heading into Saturday?
Just showing them what they did good, showing them the why they did good, and just building off of just communication, all the things we worked on in the open week. And they're going to be up against a different challenge this week coming up. So it's not going to be slow mesh. It's going to be fast.
So that's just from a schematic standpoint, watching the game, it looked like, you know, you were back to being Lance again, just the way you were calling that game and dialing things.
So I hadn't been Lance?
Well, it looked a little different. And this game looked
no different.
It looked like you're aggressive.
You can be aggressive when you can take advantage of things, but when they can run on you, it makes you a certain way. When they go fast, it's just, I mean, it's a challenge each week. You know, it's a different challenge. You can't do the same things you do against everybody. It don't fit. If there was one defense you could run, I'd run it every dang time, but it's not. You know, it's not that easy from the eye that you're looking at it. Our kids were back to playing with confidence, and that's what I saw. And it's easier to call when you play with confidence. You know, when you're not playing well, you keep grabbing at different things and you try to hold on to something. So, yeah. So each week's a different challenge.
Lance, on the defensive line, you moved Akeem Mesidor outside, leave CJ Clark a little more inside.
Yeah.
Just what went into that, and what did you like about what you saw from
Well, Mesidor has been playing hard all year, you know, and he's had to play inside, and we started playing him a little bit outside, but not a lot. But we thought this week would be a good week for him to play outside, and we put him at the jack. And when we put him at the jack, we moved Tyler to Bain's side because we got Malik at the other. So Mesidor played really outstanding, which we knew he would. And we knew he would play hard. And we got healthier inside, you know, with some guys. CJ, of course, played well in there. Marley played well. We knew we had to sit Moten out for half and then get Moten. So we're a little bit healthier inside, which allowed us to play Mesidor outside because we haven't gotten Elijah Austin back in a while.
Is part of that the challenge that Syracuse presents? I mean, now you game plan for Wake to beat Wake. But was any part of the thinking this might be some of the stuff we have to do this coming week as well?
It's different. It's not going to be slow mesh. It's different things you have to do because they're a pass and attack. I mean, they will run the ball, but you look at it and they're a little bit more pass first before run. They do have a good running back. So it's just a different type of offense. It's a little bit more like Duke maybe. Not quite like Louisville, but there's some similarities between it. But they're good. They're good at what they do, and the quarterback's smart. So.
Coach Cristobal had high praise for Louisiana guy Dylan Day that made some big plays on special teams. The city's almost there in that defensive secondary. Just what are your thoughts on his progression?
He's getting better. He's getting acclimated to the college game. You really don't ever know when a kid's coming out of high school how quick that is. Of course, he's a safety, so it's harder for a safety mentally to play college football than it is a corner. A corner can rely on technique and speed and things like that, but the safety can't be out of position because he's got to make a bunch of checks. So his role has been special teams mostly, and you can see him getting better and better. I mean, he's made, I think, special teams player of the week for us. It seemed like every week. I don't know if it was every week, but it seems like it. And he had a big play, and he's getting better and better, and he's going to be a good player in the future for us on defense for sure.
Syracuse is a team that is good on third down and aggressive with going for it on fourth down. Does that change your approach at all as a play caller with
Yeah, where they at on the field is going to dictate, how many downs. Sometimes you got to treat third down like second down because they'll go for it on fourth. I imagine they'll go for a lot of things. They have nothing to lose. It's their last game. It's senior night, and we've got a lot to lose. Of course, each week you got a lot to lose, but it's 1-0, from here on out, and it's playoff type football for us, So I'm sure we'll get everything but the kitchen sink thrown at us, but we'll have to play with great eyes and just kind of go through the plays that affect us in the past and see if they come back up.
Mario said he said it was close up until game time on Damari Saturday. He's indicated that it might be a similar scenario this week. Your smile is giving.
I got my mama saying some rosary beads right now. She's at home saying the rosary. I might bring Mr. Miyagi in with some miracle hand. I don't know, man. When we get him back, we get him back, So he's trying to get back, though. I do believe that, and he's getting closer. And he looked good on that field in warm-ups, just the look of him, So it's like walking through that candy store and your mama say you can't get nothing, but they got big old Snicker bar you'd really like to have, and mama says we ain't got no money for it.
World history that includes Miyagi, rosary.
Nah, hopefully we get Damari back soon, but we'll take it day by day.
Your quarterback had a game this year. I think he threw 3 pick sixes and 5 interceptions or something like that. Have you had a chance to watch that film, and what did you see?
He threw a lot of picks against Pitt, and Pitt was a little exotic on him. They run a lot of what we call hot coverage, where they'll bring like 6 guys, and then they just kind of all eyeball the quarterback. And sometimes there's guys running free, but they caught a couple of picks like that, and then they matched some routes really well. So he got off to like a bad start against them, but Pitt had a lot to do with that. They had a good scheme that day, and sometimes like that. Sometimes you might be a little off. You don't read things quick. So it's a film that we looked at, of course. We look at all the films and see, what gave them the most problems, and can we fit in what we do to some of that. And some you can and some you can't. So, but Pitt got after him really good, and they got up in the game, and it affected the game, of course.
How much do you think this group is just going to embrace just the simplicity of this thing, that we win, we're going to Charlotte? I mean, that's Miami teams love controlling their own destiny. Mm-hmm. There's a long history of going on the road and with an awful lot of, I don't want to say swagger because Mario hates that word more than anything, but there's a lot of confidence in that situation. How much will this team embrace being able to know that it's got everything in its hands?
It's always good when you get to this point and everything's, in your hands. You win, you move on. So they know the task at hand. I don't think the task will be too big for them. I think we'll play well. But Syracuse is one of those teams, if they get hot on you, they can make it one of those games. I mean, if you look at the comparison teams that we've played, they beat Georgia Tech, so we have to go up there and play really good. We need to build off defensively. We need to build off of what we did last week, and offensively, we need to play like we have been all year. Last week was just one of those games where it was our turn to step up, in the game, and we did, and that's why it's called a team. I mean, it's a football team. So when they need you to answer the bell, you have to answer the bell, and it happened to be our turn, and our kids did it. So.
What was your evaluation of Misha's dance?
He can't dance. That's a West Coast dance, man. Nah, I was just happy he scored. I didn't even see the dance. I just saw it on Twitter. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So when's the Lance Guidry Misha Powell dance off?
We're not gonna have a dance off. I'm too old to dance.
Of seniors, Kiko, he's had kind of an up and down year. He's had a lot, his share of missed tackles and stuff. Plays a very good game last week, no missed tackles. How can he, as a senior, to have maybe come on stronger as the year approaches the most important part of the year? How big is that for him?
That's good. I think he's getting healthier. Everybody forgets he's coming off of a labrum surgery. So when you're trying to make tackles on college running backs, and you're coming, your arm's not as strong as it was before, and you keep building it up. That's kind of what's been in the season. Cam Kitchens was like that last year. Cam didn't have the season that everybody thought he should, but he had a concussion, and he rolled his ankle real bad and was really never healthy. Thankfully that Kiko's getting healthy at the end of the season. So he had 12 solos and just needs to keep playing like he's been, here lately. So happy for him. He's a great kid, and he's got a bright future.
The way they throw the ball to the running backs, is that unique? A different challenge?
No, they get in a lot of empty sets, and they'll swing him out of the backfield, and they'll do different things. But a lot of people get the ball to the running backs, We've faced some scat backs before that have done that. You just got to mix up things that you're doing to give them different looks. But they'll give you a lot of different wrinkles. They'll get in. They'll have the tight end in, and he'll be flexed out like a wide receiver, and you got to treat it like 10 personnel. Sometimes they'll get in 12 personnel, and he's out like a wide receiver, and really it's 11 personnel. So he's the hybrid guy. So you got to defend formations against them, and they do a good job. They know what they're doing. The quarterback's smart. So we have to mix up some things and play really good, tackle well, keep the ball in front of us, and challenge the ball in the air. That's what we got to do.
And he is a quarterback that he can keep plays alive.
Yeah.
The fact that your guys, when you go 1v1s,
Yeah.
Morgan generally can keep a play alive.
Yeah.
We've heard some things about
Yeah.
How much does playing against Cam, how much does that
Well, we don't get to tackle Cam. So it's not like we get to practice against athletic quarterback and tackle him. Oh, you see it, but you don't get tackled. It's a whole different thing. You see us when we play Virginia Tech. That was a whole different animal right there. But yeah, Cam keeps the ball alive. What it does when you got a kid that, a quarterback that can keep it alive, you got to cover longer, and that's what Cam's been able to, give us. So this guy's a lot like that. He'll keep the play alive. He'll scramble to throw, so he's good at that, and we need to keep the ball away from him. So that'd be a good plan.
Anything else?
We have asked Mario, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
My wife's not going to be here. She's going back home, but before she leaves, she's cooking the day for me. Cook turkey, ham, cornbread dressing. We don't eat stuffing. We eat cornbread dressing. We eat rice dressing, potato salad, green bean casserole. Stuffing tastes like styrofoam to me. So, yeah, dressing. Dressing's my favorite.
Is there, and obviously it is not in the burger.
I had a conversation with one of our players about stuffing and dressing, but anyway.
Fill us in.
No, it's just cornbread dressing compared to stuffing.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Was the player unaware of the greatness?
He's never eaten cornbread dressing. He's never eaten dressing. So you cannot, if they don't know, they don't know. Being from Louisiana, you know what good food is. So when somebody says, "Oh, coach, tried this seafood," and I go, so what you think? I'm like, it's not it. They don't know, they don't know. I'm not saying Louisiana's the only food, but it's high up there. I've lived in a lot of states.
Educate kids.
You got to live down there to know. It's like, gumbo, coach, teach me how to cook gumbo. I can't teach you. You don't know how it's supposed to taste. So anyway, thank y'all so much.